I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop.
The music kind of automatically becomes a soundtrack to what we're experiencing in the wild. If a storm or say a big gust of wind comes in right as I'm like playing a swell up the piano, I might stretch it out, or I might change the way I'm playing it, holding a note or going faster or slower or louder or softer to kind of like react to what's happening in the landscape.
That is today's guest, Hunter Noack. He's a classical pianist, a naturalist, and the creator of this unique traveling concert series called In a Landscape. It's celebrating its 10th year on the road, and here's what makes it so unique. Hunter and his team bring classical music to the wild by hauling a 9-foot Steinway grand piano on a flatbed trailer into some of America's most breathtaking natural settings, including everywhere from national parks to even small community parks cherished by locals. And instead of setting up massive speakers and playing a typical concert, they decided to do something totally different. So at each show, they give every audience member a set of wireless headphones that allows them to wander throughout the landscape. So the music becomes sort of a soundtrack to their experience, allowing people to connect with the music, connect with the natural world, and even to each other in surprising ways.
It's so important to actually be able to talk, not only to like talk about what we have in common, but also find a way to talk about what's not in common. The concert itself, it's focused basically on an appreciation of the landscape and of music, something that almost everybody can kind of get behind.
Also in this conversation, Hunter's favorite hidden gem destinations in the American West that you won't find in typical travel guides. He's been to some majestic natural spots. You're going to want to stick around for that. He also shares this truly amazing story from an American Indian reservation, a concert he was playing there. This experience, just hearing it gave me chills up and down my spine. You're going to want to keep your ear open for that, and loads more happening in this show right now. So buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you for being here, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This, of course, is the show to help you travel the world on your terms. And I truly appreciate when people find a way to combine their passion for travel with other things they love. In this case, we're talking about music, nature, community, connection. Hunter's been able to do this with this unique concert series. You can learn more about it at inalandscape.org in its 10th season. They've already played over 300 plus outdoor concerts for over 75,000 people in some of America's most jaw-droppingly beautiful landscapes. So you're going to love to hear the story behind this concert series and some of the magical moments that take place on the ground, and of course, some of the things involved with creating it and all of that. By the way, on that note, at the end, if you stick around, I want to share a single word that popped out to me while I was preparing this episode for you. And this word can really ignite your creativity in a different way. It might even change the way you're approaching something in your life right now. So you can stay tuned for that after the interview, plus an incredible quote that I found that ties this one together. Before we dive in, one last note, don't forget zerototravel.com/newsletters, where you find our free newsletter. I write it. It goes out once a week, and you can sign up for free for that over there. Now let's dive into my conversation with Hunter. Please enjoy, and I will see you on the other side, my friend. Thanks for listening. Hunter Noack, welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This is quite an honor, especially considering it's 1-something in the morning for you. So I do appreciate your presence here, and congratulations, man. 10 seasons of In a Landscape, 300 plus outdoor concerts, over 75,000 people in some of America's most jaw-droppingly beautiful landscapes. I mean, when you started this, did you have any idea this would still be going after a decade? Probably not, I'm guessing.
No idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, did it surprise you that it's still going, or are you taking it year by year? How did you get to the 10-year mark?
The very first year, I applied for a grant to basically try this project, and I mean, after the first few concerts, it was pretty clear that there was something beyond. There was something happening here. The kind of feedback that I was getting from the audience was beyond the kind of feedback that I got in a concert hall. And I felt like there was something beyond me that people were experiencing with this music in these inspiring landscapes. And so immediately started planning the next season. And I think maybe if anything, I thought that we would be going to more far away places. But we've really stayed pretty local. Like every year is really Northwest and Oregon focused. I mean, we're branching out to California and Wyoming, Montana. Yeah, it's really actually been kind of one of the most rewarding parts about this is going back to some of the same places year over year and actually having, friendships and relationships with people in the communities we get to play in.
Yeah, it's such an incredible project, and I love the simplicity of your mission, according to the website, which, by the way, people can go on inalandscape.org. We'll link up to it, and you can find all the shows that are coming up and everything like that. I would love to have the chance to attend one. Unfortunately, I'm many thousands of miles away in Norway. But yeah, we were saying before we were recording, we got to get the piano out here, the 9-foot Steinway up on a fjord somehow. That would be a documentary worth making, just seeing how we would get it up there.
Absolutely.
But your mission says on the website, our mission is to connect people to nature and classical music through concerts that are accessible to all. Beautiful. What a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I mean, as somebody who lived the touring lifestyle, I spent 10 years traveling around, setting up events, running them, sometimes having to MC them and stuff like that, which is not anywhere close to the difficulty of performing the pieces that you do. But I can put myself in your shoes based on my experience. And I know how full every day is when you're doing something like this, because you have to load in, you have to arrive. I'm sure there's all kinds of technical and logistical things that you have to sort out. Sometimes there's problems maybe, and you're in the middle of nowhere in a lot of places. And then so by the time it gets to the performance, now that all hinges on you. I mean, how is that experience for you personally, kind of having to run the whole show on sort of the front end of just getting it to the point where you're ready to go? And then you have to step up and play this complicated music. I can only imagine it's challenging.
First of all, I have an amazing group of people that I work with that, come on the road, and then another set of people that work kind of from the home office that help make everything happen. So and even from the beginning, it's always been very much a team effort. When I was performing mostly in concert halls before this project, I would get really nervous. My hands, would sweat, and I would have memory issues, and I was just like a bundle of anxiety. And in a concert hall, there's nothing really working against you other than yourself. And when you're outside, like sometimes it's really windy or it's really cold or it's really hot. And there's, sometimes the weather and the circumstances are kind of, it feels like there's resistance there. And so it makes me actually have to kind of get out of my head and focus on the music that I'm creating and focus on trying to communicate kind of in spite of the conditions. And that's been a very helpful kind of practice. I also I love working outside. I love, driving the trailer. I love being a part of the crew and setting up and tearing down and getting dirty. And so, for me, it's way more fun than going from city to city, sleeping, alone in a hotel room and then performing. I mean, I love the concert hall, and I think that performing in concert halls is really fun, but this is more fun.
In some ways, it's the antithesis of the classical pianist's touring lifestyle, right? Like it's not typical. That's for sure. I mean, you're thinking about that scene, if you want to call it a scene. This is one of the beautiful things about the project that we're going to talk about, and I know that you've talked about in the past during your TED Talk, which I was watching this morning. By the way, we'll link up to that, and some of the other media you've done, the community, this sort of the magical moments that are created within this experience that people have, and you're attracting a wide variety of people that aren't necessarily going to be the same people that would end up in a concert hall. And what about that part of it do you get the most satisfaction from, I guess?
Like I said, this started kind of as an artistic project, and I was at first I was inspired by the WPA, the Works Progress Administration, which was a government stimulus plan during the Great Depression of the 1930s. And through the federal music and theater projects, thousands of free concerts and plays were presented, many of them outside in public lands. And I loved conceptually the idea of people going, experiencing these amazing performing arts in places that were in what I believe are our most democratic spaces, which are public lands and parks. And I also loved that it signaled, like the WPA signaled to the American people that the arts are as an important part of they're as important as things like roads and post offices to the health of our, to the health of our society. But it wasn't until those first concerts where I started hearing the feedback about what people were experiencing in the landscape that really helped me fall in love with the music more. When I was doing my master's in London, I was kind of thinking I was going to go into more producing. I had started a production company, was interested. I love like immersive theater, and I had been working on the first kind of project of our company was a production of this famous work for a string sextet called Verklärte Nacht, which is about a woman who's walking through a nighttime forest. It's written by Arnold Schoenberg after a poem. And this woman she's walking in the forest, she's pregnant, she's walking with her lover, who is not the father of the child that she's carrying. And it's a short, beautiful poem kind of about love and forgiveness. And I love context for when I'm experiencing art. And so I wanted to with this show, I wanted to give people everything that they would get if they had read a book about this work of art before, kind of in the set design and in the experience of the show. So I worked with this awesome, really talented lighting and set designers, had incredible musicians from Guildhall School of Music and Drama. And we transformed this black box theater into a nighttime forest, had two actors dramatize the poem so that when people enter the space, at first, they sort of made their way through the trees, had leaves on the ground. They even burnt some sage and stuff. And that way, when they listened to this piece of classical music, they understood the environment in which it was performed, and that changed how people felt about the music. And so I think like we're such a visual, I am such a visual experiencer. I'm so accustomed to getting signals and cues from how to feel through my eyeballs. And when we're in nature, everything is always changing all the time. And there's so much like physical and visual stimulation that with this music that, I usually perform music that is on the more spacious end of the spectrum, like music that would sound good as a soundtrack. It has this like effect where like our brains are always trying to piece things together. And so the music kind of automatically becomes a soundtrack to what we're experiencing in the wild. And I think like just getting to perform the music and hear the music kind of along with the audience, it makes me play the music differently. Like if a storm or say a big gust of wind comes in right as I'm like playing a swell up the piano, I might like stretch it out, or I might I might change the way I'm playing it, holding a note or going faster or slower or louder or softer, to kind of like react to what's happening in the landscape. And in that way, I feel like I'm kind of in it with the audience together as opposed to kind of performing at them. And there's a kind of a level of improvisation that I didn't really feel comfortable doing in a concert hall.
Has it connected you to nature in a new or different way than you were before?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's, John Muir said we need beauty as well as bread, places to play in and pray in, places that nourish us and give us strength. And I think that just by spending time in nature, we become better, gentler, kinder, more empathetic, smarter people. And so even if I wasn't playing music in nature, I think just spending time makes me stronger. What practicing and performing outside does is I sometimes there are things happen that feel just like little teachers, where I am I've become more sensitive to noticing big and small things outside, because everything, like a really fun game for me with any piece of music is to try and imagine it being a soundtrack to a movie. And sometimes when I'm practicing, they're like memories or I'll sort of come up with sort of like Disney's Fantasia, the 1942 version, not the 2000 version. Like it's kind of a fun exercise to take any piece of music and be with it outside and set my gaze in the landscape. Often there will be like a little bug that might crawl onto the piano or like be on the keys. And it's, suddenly there's like this drama with the bug, because I imagine the music being the soundtrack to this scene in this bug's life. And it makes everything just kind of feel, it's like it comes to life in a very focused, vivid way, that it's like a game and an exercise. And so, yeah, I think it maybe just has helped me pay attention to everything a little bit more closely.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop. Now, back to the show. You're a master of your craft. You know, I mean, to get to that point, I play a very bad guitar, by the way. To be able to not only technically play a piece and be in the music, but then to have that awareness to just understand the setting and then be able to channel those visual experiences or the wind or the bug and the things that are happening in real time. You're in the moment with the music, but you're also in the moment in the landscape, and you're and then with the people there, and you're combining all of that, which of course is flowing out of you through the music. That's beautiful.
You know the guitar is a huge inspiration to me because I love that you can bring a guitar with you camping, strum it around the campfire, and automatically, it's like this. It's this beautiful portable instrument that people can sing along to, and you can bring it anywhere. And I really wanted to, I loved that, and I wished on some level that I could play the guitar. And part of my motivation was to bring my instrument to places that I would want to camp, and to places that just feel good to be. One of my kind of first experiences of an extended period of time in the wilderness was with the Sierra Club in Yosemite. And after that trip, I had never felt so high in my life. It was, I was in college, and it was truly a transformational, mind bending experience. And to be able to bring, to be able to sing together and to have, to make something that kind of brings people together outside just seems like the most magical possibility. And so, having a 9-foot Steinway that weighs 1,000 pounds, it took a year to figure out how I could move it to the top of a mountain and to the middle of a desert. But that's essentially at the core, it's doing the same thing as a guitar. It's like being this tool that helps us all just be together.
Yeah. I love that you took your passion for nature and that idea of wanting to, sit around the campfire, like that kind of mentality. And you're just like, you know what? Yeah, okay, my instrument's a 9-foot Steinway grand piano, but I'm not going to let that stop me. Yeah, so it takes a year to figure out how to move it around to these places. Okay, I'm just going to persevere. I'm going to figure it out. I mean, I think that's super inspiring. Yeah.
Thanks. And I mean, several people said, use a keyboard or use something that's smaller or more portable. But I was kind of describing this to a philanthropist named Jordan Schnitzer, who lives here in Oregon. And he got it. Like I said, I want the same piano that's in Carnegie Hall. It's like this iconic American instrument that symbolizes so much. And it's also just like this majestic instrument and they're really built. I mean, it's a testament to Steinway that this 1912 9-foot Steinway has performed concerts at -2 degrees in the snow and at 100 7 degrees in direct sun and rainstorms and, and it's still with the help of really skilled technicians that work on it before every performance, it still sings and I think sounds better than ever. But Jordan, he got it, and he said, go find this instrument and I'll buy it. And that was really a game changer, like to have somebody that with those kind of resources that was able to was willing to take a risk on kind of purchasing this thing that, most people that own a piano that's worth that much money, they're not going to like say, yeah, go try putting it on a trailer and driving it up a mountain. Like they just, that was a game changer for sure.
Yeah. And you're right. Yeah. Symbolically, I hadn't even, I guess, in watching some of the performances and kind of researching for this conversation, of course, it's not the same as being there, but the flatbed trailer and the piano, you up there in the landscape, you're right. It creates a visual that is very memorable. It's sticky, let's say. This is going to resonate with a lot of people listening, I'm sure. It's like there's so much convenience in society now, right? Like it's like you can get your groceries delivered to your front door, it's all this stuff. And when you go out and, haul this gigantic instrument up to this place and you have your whole team and everybody's worked so hard to set up for this experience that's going to last, I'm guessing, is it a couple hours?
90 minutes.
Yeah. For, a couple hundred people, let's say, or I'm sure the audience size varies. That is, to me, a lot of the things that's beautiful about being human. It's kind of encapsulates that in some ways. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not about the convenience. It's not about like trying to sell as many tickets as possible or be efficient. It's not about those things. And that's what makes it so special to me. And one of the things that makes it so special, because you have to make a living and you have to do all the things. And maybe I'm fishing for some advice here for somebody that's comes out of this and they're really inspired by your project and maybe they have their own project idea or they have their own version of something that they want to do. And perhaps they have to balance the realities of, paying your bills and things like that with doing a beautiful, wonderful art project like this that gives back in so many ways or something else. How do you balance that yourself? What are some of the lessons you've learned? What's some advice you may have?
When I finished grad school, I had exactly 0 job opportunities. Even in college, I was seeing my colleagues who were, some of the greatest young pianists in the world doing, placing in international competitions and struggling, it's even then struggling to kind of like have a sense of security with their work. And it's kind of like this really rigorous and kind of not necessarily healthy competition environment or teaching. And there's not a lot of other outlets for being a performing classical pianist. And so definitely part of my motivation in starting this was creating work for myself. And one of the most helpful things was a series of writing grants, because what grants do is they help you articulate, they help you kind of refine ideas that would be fun into ideas that are feasible. And the whole purpose of a lot of grants is to encourage people to think and do things differently, to think outside of the box. And the very first year, I got a small grant for $6,500. It's one of a few, it was a grant for individual artists. I have, of course, had a lot of help putting together that grant, ideating, everything from ideating to writing it, putting together budgets, that all was like this team effort. And then the next year I got an $85,000 grant to take it all over Oregon. And after those 2 years, there's like there's real world experience, and we can figure out, okay, how can we turn this, and should we turn this into a business? And we ultimately decided that there was enough meat there to merit not just turning it into a business, but turning it into an organization with a mission that wasn't driven by a bottom line, but that was driven by a mission. And we still, it's a profitable nonprofit organization. We make about 65% of our budget in ticket sales, which is higher than most nonprofits, but we do also depend on grants and donations. In order to keep the ticket prices low, we also give away over $100,000 in free tickets every year. And anyway, so back to your question, I think following the fun is the most.
Follow the fun. I love that.
Follow the fun.
Yeah.
And then apply for grants. I've been turned down from so many grants, I can't even tell you, but they're kind of a lottery, but they also are incredibly helpful for refining ideas into things that are feasible. And so I'd say, write grants for things that you think would be fun, create art that you would want to go see yourself. Like the one of the productions that I was really inspired by that I didn't even actually see in person was in Los Angeles, this opera company called The Industry, which was at the time led by Yuval Sharon. They produced an opera called Invisible Cities in Union Station in Los Angeles. And they had an orchestra in one part of the station, singers and dancers roaming around the whole station. As it was open, people coming and going, getting on and off trains, but the audience all wore wireless headphones. And it was the first show where I had heard people, where it's heard of a classical music show that wasn't using amplified sound or an acoustically designed space, and people were having a really high quality aural experience. And it was like a combination of immersive theater, which I love. And like, that was a show that I would want to go see. And then I was like, okay, how can I take the music that I love and the places that I love and make something that uses that technology? Because that technology solved a problem that I could use that solution in my fun project. And so it was seeing these different, like, if I wasn't going to see the shows that I wanted to see, I wouldn't have maybe been exposed to kind of these other solutions out there that were really an integral part of this experiment.
Yeah. It's a great example too of just like, you kind of never know where you're going to draw inspiration from, right? You show up at a show like that, and it turns out that you end up incorporating that technology into this 10 plus year project, or I think about the immersive theater experience you described earlier in London and how you flip-flop that really, you guys created the environment within which you created the context, and now you take the piano to the context in a way, like the landscape, and it's just interesting to hear sort of the backstory and how all of these experiences you had previously play in. And I think that's a great attitude to have for listeners that have a hard time kind of finding a role, a job, or whatever, some kind of career in the place that they are interested in, where you said, well, like you said, you guys sort of created work for yourself, right? Kind of, yes, it requires some out of the box thinking and hard work, and applying for the grants. And I'm sure all that paperwork and different things you guys had to do to get off the ground isn't fun, but ultimately you created something for yourself that also, I think, provides a ton of value for people that are in your sphere. Is there like a moment from the past decade when you think back on these shows? And this is an interesting time because I think like these marks, like 10 years or 5 years, especially 10 years, right? you could just be like, oh, it's our 10th year anniversary, whatever. But like nobody does that, because after 10 years, you are like, I don't know if it's a human thing. I know it's just a number, but you just reflect. You just start reflecting. Like you can't help it, right? You start reflecting back. And so I'm sure you've been doing a lot of that as you're going into the 10th year and you're having these conversations and talking about the project. Yeah. Like as you kind of reflect back, what are some of the things that stand out to you in terms of either life lessons or like experiences you've witnessed? I feel like sometimes in real time, you might like see something and then take a lesson right away. And other times it takes like 8 years to process what you saw. And then you're looking back and you're like, oh, yeah, I learned that about myself. Wow.
Yeah.
Like, is there anything recently, like any revelations you've had, like looking back?
You're right that there's been a lot of reflecting and a lot of using that reflection to think about, okay, where are we going to be in 10 years? And one thing that I think about a lot, because it's really hard to choose where to go. We have every year we start out with about 400 different places that we could bring this piano, and we have to whittle it down to 50 concerts. I'm like really excited by the national parks. I love what the national parks stand for. I don't, they all have a really complicated history, but I am so grateful that we have national parks. And so it's an incredible honor to get to like perform in Yosemite Valley and in Joshua Tree and Crater Lake, and really, really epic. And what I'm surprised by though is like it's most often that it's like the non-celebrity county park that's kind of that's for the people who, that's not a travel destination, but it's a place that the locals spend a lot of time. The places that people have like a relationship with over a long period of time. It's like by bringing the music into those places, the feedback is it's just like amped up, because it's like I'm getting to be a part of what people feel about a place. And in most national parks, most of the people that are there are visitors. There is a community of people that live in and right around the park, but for most of the people at the show, it's a higher percentage of people that are tourists. Whereas when we're in a more, usually more rural setting that's not kind of a celebrity spot on the map, most of the people that are coming because it's, not necessarily because they're like classical piano enthusiasts. They're coming because it's something to do, they're interested, and they love this place. And, they've been coming, like at East Lake, this woman said, I've been coming here with my father since the 1950s. And she just has, she has all of these memories of fishing on this lake with her father for decades. And suddenly she's sitting on the shore watching, the waves lap, and she's like seeing this place that she has such a long history and relationship with, but she's like experiencing it with a slightly different filter of this music. And then when she talks to me and she shares with me like her history and her, a story about her father, I like feel this privilege that I get to feel so close to her because she has such a strong relationship with this place. And, and that's, I think, like the surprise magic that happens at every show, because these places are inspiring and magical. I get as much satisfaction playing in the little county parks that maybe aren't even as visually dynamic or spectacular, jaw-dropping. I get as much satisfaction playing in those places as I do, at the entrance to Yellowstone National Park.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. Now, back to the show. Yeah, also when you bring your show to having been touring with bands and such too, like it's some of the rural places, I do think there's an appreciation level too of like, because it's not everybody that's bringing something special there all the time, and the out of the way places. And like I said, then there's connection to the local place that they have just through their own personal history with it. Those are so many interesting dynamics with this project. Do you consider yourself spiritual? Is there like a spiritual element to all of this for you personally?
Yes. I don't quite know how to articulate it. There have been some really out there things that have happened.
Let's go there, Hunter.
Concerts.
Let's go there. Okay. We're going there today, man. We're going all the way to the other end of the woo-woo scale, folks.
Yeah. So I
love to hear these experiences.
The Warm Springs Indian Reservation is in Central Oregon, and it's the Confederate Tribes of Warm Springs. And we were first kind of got into conversations with members of Warm Springs when we were looking at a site in the Columbia River Gorge that they now own. It's part of their ancestral homelands, but it was only a recent actual land acquisition. And really cool spot that's kind of just in the middle of the gorge, kind of a rock jutting out into the water. And the next year we got talking, and they were interested in having a concert on the reservation. And so we went there and we looked, sort of drove around. It's a massive, compared to what the Treaty of 1855 allocated, it's a fraction of their land, but it's still a very large section of land, a few 100,000 acres. And so we were kind of exploring it all, and there was, as you can imagine, some enthusiasm and also some resistance to the idea of having a young white boy come and play some Western classical music on the res. And part of the motivation to be there is about cultural exchange. One of my great friends and collaborators, James Edmund Greeley, who's a Native American Music Award winner. He's also been on Esperanza Spalding's Grammy-winning album most recently. James is a member of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. We improvise together. We become really good friends through this project. So like featuring him on the concert, we also have worked with the Warm Springs Community Action Team. They organize, a dozen different vendors to come to the concert. It's free for tribal members. We also had some elders kind of sharing stories about their language and their culture and the history of the reservation before the concert. And, trying to make this show something that's both for the tribal members and the local community, but also engaging and informative for the non-tribal members and the people that otherwise wouldn't be allowed on the reservation. And so, there's a lot of really intense and sensitive cultural stuff happening at this piano concert. Like the first year, it was really cold and just like this just dark clouds were hovering over. There's Mount Jefferson towering in the distance, and it's just like this swirly, like almost like dark green, like there's going to be a tornado kind of dark thunder clouds. And it rained, and there was lightning kind of off in the distance, and the rain would kind of sweep through. It's high desert, so it's it's not like where I am now in Portland, where it's sort of when it rains, it's just going to be there for hours or days or months or weeks. And right at the near the end of the set, the sun lowered down below the line of the clouds, and it was just, there were like, it just lit up the sky, just like the brightest red, orange pop, the entire sky. There was lightning going through the rainbows. It was mind-blowingly beautiful. And this is happening as like I'm playing the final kind of like release song after this 90-minute set. And it was just like, how could we not read something? You have to be really dense not to like at least think about some sort of symbolism happening. And so, you know, the show ended, and one of the elders came up to me and he said, "The land has spoken." He said those words in a way that I have not felt a human talk to me before. It was so meaningful for him to, like, with the authority that he has, to basically say that I'm welcome. There was a mutual gratitude and understanding that was like palpable, and it was really moving.
Thanks for sharing that. That's an incredible story. Let people know the best place to learn more about your work. Is it your website? Is it just inalandscape.org? Is that the place for people to go?
Yeah, that's the best place.
For anybody out there pursuing a career in the arts, what is your best advice?
The arts. When I was in London, I lived with an opera critic and a playwright. And
it sounds like the beginning of a joke, Hunter.
They were pretty magical people. They had this old cat named Afra. And Afra wasn't so good at hunting mice. I lived kind of in their attic, not exactly an attic, but like they're sort of the top of their skinny, tall house. And when, Afra had long sort of stopped being a good hunter. And I really felt that one night when I woke up to the sound of a mouse chewing at my hair on the pillow. And that's not where the story is going. But
that sounds like a career in the arts. You should be prepared that that's going to happen to you at some point. There will be a mouse chewing on your hair in the middle of the night.
But Tom Sutcliffe, who's the critic, he would sometimes take me to see the opera. He described to me that, even then, this was 10, 15 years ago, like the critics were being phased out of general pop culture, arts, the diminishing of the roles of our critics across, in London and in America, and I'm sure in other places, was happening. And he was describing how, these days, most of the roles of a critical review are to tell people, they're just like, you're trying to just get people to come to the show, and to do anything much more than drive up enthusiasm to drive ticket sales is not necessarily something that the publishers want or the productions want. It's made it much more difficult to tell I can't even say what's good and bad, but like what is, I think it's made artists a little bit more okay with not being challenged to do better. Like in Portland, it's actually an amazing place to like try stuff because it's a very enthusiastic and very supportive audience. Everybody gets a standing ovation no matter what. And that is a great place. Like it's a wonderful place to experiment. It's not a great place to like refine and be challenged to make your work better. We need critics and we need our artists not to just be praised and given standing ovations. I think in order for us to make artwork that is lasting, it needs to be sculpted over time, and the sculptors are our critics, and they are people that have been in the industry. There are elders, and it's people, like people that have been creating and consuming artwork and like analyzing it, that understand the rules and know how to encourage us in a direction that makes the work lasting and meaningful. And so my advice is to seek out real criticism and critique from those who you really admire and respect.
That's great advice. I mean, for anything really, whether it's business or the arts or anything, that's great advice. This isn't a political podcast, but it's not political really to say that America is fairly divided right now, at least politically. But of course, on the ground, the experience is a lot different when you're mingling with the Americans, let's say.
Yeah.
What has this experience traveling around to these different areas taught you about Americans, about your home country?
I mean, just basically what you said, that when we're on the ground, we have a lot more in common than our phones would like to make us believe. For context, for those that can't see me, I'm like a 36-year-old Caucasian male that presents as like I kind of can be whatever people want me to be. And so when I'm in, no matter kind of the context, I think generally people feel quite comfortable and they presume maybe that I'm on their side, whatever side of the spectrum that is. So that's just neither here nor there. That's just sort of context. At our concerts, about half of the people are local and half are traveling more than 50 miles to attend. So especially in the rural areas, half of the people are local. And I would say in the more rural areas, that half is generally on the more right end of the spectrum. And the people that are maybe traveling from cities might be generally more on the left end of the spectrum. What is one of my favorite things about this is seeing everybody be together. Whether it's like in Fort Rock, Oregon, a small, mostly ranching farming community in Central Oregon, we do a pie social at the local Grange Hall. It feels like there's no problems. Like people even they'll talk about politics, they'll talk about water issues, they'll talk about like local, as long as we stay talking about the effects of local politics or the effects of federal politics locally, most people are happy to be asked questions. When they're face to face, they're generally very kind. And even when people disagree, there's real conversations happening. And we so desperately need to be having conversations with each other, especially with people that have a different understanding of the world than we do. When two neighbors when they're watching different TV shows, different news shows, it's so important to actually be able to talk, not only to like talk about what we have in common, but also find a way to talk about what's not in common. And I think that's like the concert itself has this, because it's focused basically on an appreciation of the landscape and of music, something that almost everybody can kind of get behind, and pretty much everybody's, on board with that if they're at the concert. And so you're kind of like giving them this whole foundation on which that's pretty solid on which to have a conversation. There's lots to talk about just even having shared that 90 minutes together. And beyond that, then the more challenging things, if people choose to talk about them, there's like a gentleness and an openness that is, I'd say, most often kind of like lingering in the conversation. And so I wish that we could do a concert. I wish we could do a million of these concerts, because I think in some little way they are helpful. They're helpful for like, there's so few like gatherings where people of different political persuasions and economic and social strata are in the same place experiencing something like lovely and pretty. That's not like, that's also intimate. These shows, some of our shows are up to 1,000 people, but most of our shows are, 400 or 500. And it really depends on the landscape, but you put 500 people out in a giant rock caldera, and it feels like in this magnificent, majestic landscape, that 500 people is like a tiny little anthill. And so you feel connected with the other people that are there. And we just need more of that.
Yeah. That must be so rewarding for you too, to foster that shared experience through which, I guess that's sort of the foundational element for these conversations, right? Coming out of it, it's like we had this shared experience. We went through this beautiful concert together. We have this thing to talk about, to bond over, and then it opens up a dialogue. It must be just for you as the organizer, as the creator of this experience, that must be one of the more rewarding parts, I would imagine.
There's a ranch in southeastern Oregon at the Alvord Desert, and through these concerts, I got to know the family, their extended family, their friends, their the community that works on the land, both on their ranch, on the conserved ranch that's down the road, and getting to like, now people trust me to tell. Because I ask also, but there's a trust. And so I get to learn about each landscape from the people that are actually working in the land, working with the land. And I generally a pretty open-minded and curious person. And so I can follow, as long as I just keep asking questions, it's really rewarding for me, and has opened my eyes to, it's completely changed my perspective. And that's like a gift that the people give me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, compared to what, say, like the year before you started this or whatever, compared to now, it's, your perspective is, yeah.
You can kind of talk to people if you're, in a restaurant or a hotel, or maybe if you go see a show together, but as a performer, you often get kind of a different level of maybe openness and access to people that are, to people in a community, because people want to talk to you, because the project has everything to do with the land. There's more of a direct line into an Inquisition around the way that they're managing the land.
I appreciate that about you, Hunter, because you're making it bigger than yourself, but you're a huge part of this, performing this music and everything like that. But it seems to me that you have a real sense of, you're almost like, the bigger sort of picture of this. It's like, it's me, it's my performance, but it's not about me type of attitude, which is really nice. Nice is probably the wrong word, but
No, I know what you mean.
Know what I mean.
I'm sort of smiling because when I was on a concert stage, I'm not a very dynamic performer. I was actually kind of trained to not be physically expressive. My partner, on the other hand, he has a band called Pink Martini, and he is one of the most physically expressive. He's also a pianist, really incredible, talented pianist. And he's one of the most physically expressive and entertaining people to watch. And what I love about his performance, and also like watching a great conductor, is that like visually, they're helping you understand what's happening in the music. And I was just rigid and like I couldn't communicate physically in that way. And so it's actually worked kind of well for me to be performing in this context where I'm actually encouraging people not to look at me.
Right.
I mean, if they want to, get up close, they can, and it's, it might be interesting for some people. But you're
like, look at that waterfall over there. Don't look at me.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm trying to loosen up and be a little bit more like physically engaging, but
no, but that's interesting too, because that's just from an artistic and sort of performance perspective. That's another different dynamic than the usual. Like there are so many different things. You described the 500 people sort of anthill crowd out in the big meadow, for example, with the surrounding rock spires versus those same 500 people sitting in a packed theater. It becomes just the masses, even though, as opposed to an individual, like small individual gathering, even though it's the same amount of people. You have the performer on stage who is the one we're there to see, in a concert hall, versus, the guy in the flatbed trailer that's creating the background music for this incredible soundscape, landscape experience. It's just interesting because there's so many different dynamics to what you do. And I know that word keeps coming up, but I don't really know how else to describe it other than I just love the idea of kind of taking something that has been done one way traditionally and kind of flipping the script on so many aspects of it. And then, of course, the travel element. I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. But my next question, just to give you a heads up, is going to be about some of the locations you've been and some of the destinations. Because should I ask that now or?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, yeah. I just was wondering, what are some of the places you think people are missing when they come to visit America? Whether that's Americans or people coming from overseas, because of course, Yosemite Valley is spectacular and all these places, and they're on the map and people know their places to see, and by all means, go see them. But what are some of those out of the way places where you're just like, why don't more people know about this? Or, people come, like you mentioned, the subset of the audience that comes from 50 miles away, and they're like, I didn't even know this. This is incredible. Share a few of your favorite, I guess, hidden gems, if you want to call them that, off the beaten track places. We love those recommendations here.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I will say, like in all of the most highly visited national parks, going beyond the half mile that's where there's infrastructure to process the millions, almost always just another mile beyond, and it's
just one extra mile.
A different park. Some places that I love going to. I mean, I love going everywhere. When one of my favorite things to do is go scouting and just like drive down roads that I did not plan on driving down.
For your job, right?
For my, yeah, that's right. The company truck.
Got to do some research.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, one of my favorite places of all time is Summer Lake, Oregon. There's a great hot springs there. It's now part of a dark sky sanctuary, Dark Sky International. It's the largest contiguous dark sky sanctuary in the United States. Summer Lake is a place that doesn't have like a particular mountain peak or singular vista that is like the spot that you get to take a photo. It's a place that most people drive through on their way to or from Burning Man, but it's also where Luther Cressman found some of the oldest human remains in the Paisley Caves. And it's a community that's not based on tourism. And so there's a continuity of culture that is really beautiful. And the landscape itself, it's kind of like a dying lake. And by dying, you just mean that like over the last 10,000 years, it was part of this larger body of water. And now the water is receded to the point where it's dry for a good portion of the summer. And it's, there's water in the lake, the shallow lake, for most of the winter. But it's just like this, it's a place that I love going to. And especially in the springtime, it's right at the edge of the Great Basin. So you have this ridge. It's a basin and range kind of geography where there's a kind of ridge and then a drop off down to the basin. And so on the far side, on the east side of the lake, and especially in the summertime, on any given day, there might be like a dozen dust devils that are 400 meters high, but on the east or on the west side of, you're sort of lying around in the grasses and with wildflowers, and everything's just like peaceful and lovely. And the meadowlarks there, their call just echoes, and it's so clear. And the coyotes, and it's just there aren't, like, you can look out and not see any sign of human. Maybe a farmhouse and a ranch house or something. But I love Summer Lake. The Wallowas in northeastern Oregon, they call Little Switzerland. Joseph, Oregon, it's in kind of in the Wallowa Valley. This is Chief Joseph's and Nez Perce country. It's where Chief Joseph, it was a part of the Nez Perce reservation until after the Treaty of 1855. Then 10 years later, because of prospectors and just settlers, Grant decided to shrink the size of the Nez Perce reservation. Chief Joseph said, no, this is our homeland, and we signed a treaty. They were driven out, which led to the Nez Perce Wars. There are these giant rocky mountains. There's the perfect moraine lake that is deep and cold and clear. And then up kind of as you go to the northeast, the plain, this sort of shallow plain rises into the Zumwalt Prairie, and then it falls off into Hell's Canyon, to the Snake River, which is deeper than the Grand Canyon. It looks different, but it's just like it's a magical region to explore. And it's at the end of the road. So people don't pass it on their way to or from anything. And it's incredibly beautiful. It's also a place where like the community has worked really hard to prevent it from turning into an aspen. There's like constant, persistent collaboration to develop and accommodate tourism in a way that doesn't create these massive scars all over the landscape. And so it's really it's a worthwhile place to go. We're actually not playing a concert there this year, which is hard.
So where can you say one more time, the town or like where would people?
Yeah, so the town is Joseph, Oregon.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a great one of my favorite stores ever is called M. Crow. It's in Lostine, Oregon, on the way to Joseph.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They have great pizza, great beer. They have their own radio station. They make their own denim. It's very cool.
That is super cool.
And then I have to tell you about these places are in Oregon. And then I did mention the Alvord Desert. That is one of my, all-time favorite places. I've used the word magical so many times, I have to come up with a different word. There's a hot springs there, the Alvord Hot Springs. It's a small little hot springs. You can rent a bunker, like these World War II Army bunkers. It can be brutal. The weather can be brutal, but it's absolutely worth the trek. It's at least a 45-minute drive on rocky roads, gravel roads. Sometimes they're washboarded out by the end of the season. It's a good 3 hours from a town with a grocery store, but just south of the Alvord, you can get a killer milkshake at the Fields General Store. You can also get gas there. And you're in the rain shadow of Steens Mountain, which is this, you can drive actually all the way to the top of Steens Mountain from the other side. It's like a shallow descent to the west, and then a sharp drop off down to the Alvord Desert to the east. It's the homeland of the Burns Paiute tribe. There's a really interesting and tragic story about that reservation. It's just I think they still call it a frontier area because the population is so low and spread out. The dark skies there, you can see to the edge of the universe there. And like the Milky Way looks like it's just dripping like a pearl necklace into the atmosphere. It's just, it's vivid. So it's a great place to go stargazing and sit in the hot tub.
Man, you could start up a career as a travel writer after this with those descriptions. That's great, Hunter. Wow. By the way, milkshake, my total guilty pleasure on a road trip. I'm like, if you can have a drinkable dessert that fits right in the cup holder, it's dangerous, but a good milkshake, man. I love a good milkshake. I know it's late for you, so I'm going to let you go in a minute. I did want to ask you about our animal friends. You mentioned the coyotes recently, and when you were describing some of these places. And I didn't mean to ask you during these performances, you mentioned the bug and some things. I'm sure you've seen some things with animal life. I mean, we're not the only living beings here, and they're hearing the music too. So I'm just wondering, have you had any experiences related to the animal world and these concerts?
Yeah, the first one that comes to mind is in Shore Acres on the southern Oregon coast, kind of near Coos Bay. And Shore Acres is a state park that's on this cliff that if you can time going there in the winter for king tide, that is a show in and of itself. These cliffs sort of like jagged and shooting out into the ocean, and when these waves roll up, it's like fireworks. It's like Poseidon fireworks. It's awesome. And so we perched the piano. There's also botanical garden there, and we perch the piano on this lawn that's overlooking the cliffs, and so you can kind of sit at the edge and watch the waves roll in. And last year the shows happened just kind of in the hours before sunset. So it was a beautiful, crystal clear, like unusual warm day in Coos Bay. My dad lived there for a couple of years, and it's summer is not summer. It's just like often cold and foggy and damp, and we've it's beautiful too. Like sometimes the fog is so thick, it's like we're playing in a cloud. But this particular day, it was a warm summer September evening, and it was maybe 3/4 of the way through the program, and suddenly everybody was pointing and looking out to down over the edge, and a whale had come in. Like it was not 100 feet from the shore, and it was hanging out, and we played there 2 nights. And the second night it came back the same time, and I don't know if the whale can hear the piano, but I imagined that the whale could hear the piano, and that maybe
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So many. Well, I'm going to use the word one more time. So many magical experiences through this project that you've had yourself, that you've been able to foster among others. And I just think it's an incredible thing you've put together and that you're doing. So I want to encourage them to check out your website, inalandscape.org. You can read more about the concerts. You get some visuals for sure if you want to see the piano up and these unbelievable settings. I was thinking about this interview. I was thinking about going to concerts at Red Rocks. I used to live in Colorado, and it's always one of those places where you're like, wow, and you're almost creating your own Red Rocks amphitheater, and everywhere you go. I'm using air quotes because you're in all these different settings, but just that combination of music and natural setting and experience and community and all of the things that are involved with this project. I just love it. So we're excited to have the chance to get to chat with you, and thank you so much for sharing your story today, Hunter. Really appreciate it. Did I leave anything out? Is there anything you want to mention here to people in terms of the concerts that are coming up, or where people can find you, or any of that stuff?
I could just say that we're doing 50 concerts this season, starting in May down in California in Santa Barbara. Then we go up to the Bay Area and we do concerts as far east as Jackson, Wyoming, Washington, Idaho, Montana. And always love hearing suggestions of places we should bring the project. Any excuse to go scouting, I love. Same with repertoire choices. I love getting suggestions. Any places that you would love, any place you love to picnic or love to just be, that maybe it would be nice to also have a piano there. I'd love to hear about. I'm also just grateful for the opportunity to talk a little bit about this project that I love so much. And if we all could spend more time outside, I think the world would be a better place. And so I love to experience being outside with other people. And so if you come to a show, that's a gift to me as well.
Amen. Thanks, Hunter. And you heard Hunter there. I mean, he, if you can't make it to one of the shows out west, then by all means, pitch him on coming to your town.
That's right.
The invitation was there. No excuses. All right. Thanks so much, Hunter. And thanks for staying up for this. And I really appreciate your time, and hope we can stay in touch.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
Take care. There you have it. Thank you once again to Hunter Noack for stopping by the show. Of course, the website, if you want to get tickets or learn more about the concert series, inalandscape.org. We link up to that in the show notes. Incredible stories, incredible moments. Really reminds me of the importance of getting out there and connecting, and those communities that get built in real time at an experience like that. It's always a fascinating dynamic to me when you go to something and you're never going to have that group of people together in the same spot in that setting, in that moment ever again, which what makes gatherings so special, right? We know that. And I'm sure you know that as a traveler, having met some people on the road, perhaps a group of locals or a group of travelers that you spent time with, and then you just part ways, and those memories stay with you forever. It's a beautiful thing. So anyway, before we move on and I let you go, I do want to fulfill my promise at the top of the show where I talked about that single word that popped out for me when I was preparing this episode for you, and something that really got me thinking about how I'm doing things right now, and something that really set fire to my creativity, is setting fire to it in this moment, because I just realized as I was coming up with this one takeaway I wanted to wrap this episode up with, this just popped out and I thought, wow, this is really useful for me right now. So I wanted to share it because hopefully, or perhaps it's useful for you too. So that word is reimagine or reimagining. And I think that's what Hunter did with this concert series. He has reimagined what a classical concert can be for people, making it accessible, the community element, putting it out into the wild in these natural settings, instead of just blaring music on the speaker, giving people headphones. Like, all of these things have sort of reimagined the classical concert experience. That is what is creating this totally unique vibe at his shows. And just applying that word to my life right now, I'm thinking, what would it look like if I reimagined, X, Y, or Z? How would I approach it? How would I change things? How would I make it different than sort of the status quo version of that? And just that word, reimagined. I just wanted to pull that out before I let you go. So if you were going to reimagine something in your life, whether it's your travels, something in your business or in your career or at work or with your relationship, I just think that is an interesting lens to go through and can really get the creative juices flowing. So it's doing that for me. And, when I find something that's helpful, I do like to share it here with the community. So I hope that sparks something for you. Before I let you go, don't forget little musings like that. If you're interested and you want to get more, zerototravel.com/newsletter is where I do my writing, and you can sign up for that over on that link. It's free. I want to leave you with this quote from Beethoven. I love this one. I found this, never heard it before, and this really inspired me. So I'm going to leave you with this one. He said, "Don't only practice your art, but force your way into its secrets." Wow. Love that. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by zerototravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.